Alright, so the demo I'm going to be doing today is, the question was, how do we create texture using acrylics? So there's a few little goodies and gadgets that you use for creating texture in acrylics, and that's what I'm going to show you today. So we'll take that and then we'll do a few little experiments and play around, and I'll show you some of the fun things that you can do. Okay, so what I've got over here is just an old scrap canvas. So you can see it was little samples and tests and stuff that I've been doing. I think this was from my, if I look at this was from our first one or two acrylic classes, which I didn't finish these actual guys in the class, which was fine. So we're going to just use this for scrap. But now basically what you're going to do is when you're creating texture and stuff, is you're going to use yourself just a standard canvas. So there's a few things that you can use. The first one is you can actually use some gesso to build up a little bit of texture. The gesso is what they use to seal the canvas itself, so that you can paint on it without damaging the actual canvas. But now, what makes gesso great for creating texture is that your gesso's actually got a bit of like a binding, I don't want to actually use the word glue, but it's got something similar to a binding glue in it, which helps to seal the canvas. But that also, by the same token, makes this a little bit thicker. Let me see if I can get something I can throw this on so that you can see the consistency. So I'll try and throw it onto a palette. Although it's not ideal because you've got white on white. Let's do that. Alright, so I've got a good blob over there, and now look here, I'm going to tilt this, and can you see how slow it's running? And can you see how much height you've got? So you can easily use this, and maybe say add a few little brush strokes and stuff to it, to give yourself some texture and height. Can you see there? So you can zap that guy with a hairdryer, and you'd be A for a way. And at the end of the day, you can go and paint straight over that, because that there is what's there already. So you just continue painting. So that's option number one. Option number two is you get Impasto paints that are specifically made thicker. So it's standard acrylic paints, but they are made thicker. So they've got more of the acrylic in it, or a thicker mixture acrylic inside it, which also gives the paint itself more body. Let's take this. Just clean my knife. Get all the gesso off. Alright, so let's chuck some of that down there as well. So again, you can see it's nice and thick, and if I hold it at an angle, it's going to keep its shape. See that? It's not running down the palette or anything like that. So I'm holding this as pretty much 90 degrees, and it hasn't moved. So you can use this to create all sorts of lovely solid textures like that, and he'll keep his shape. See, if you zap him with a hairdryer or leave him overnight or whatever to dry, you'll stay like that. You'll keep that height. So again, you can use a knife or you can use a brush or whatever to add some texture to that. Let's just pop him back. And you get these guys, I've got this guy as a tub. So what I generally use, I'd use this, which is just a standard white colored impasto. So I would use that and I'd create all my texture on the canvas first. And then I'd let that dry and then I'd just simply paint over it. In other words, you need to, if you do it like that, you need to just use a little bit of pre-planning. So let's maybe say we're going to texturize one of these apples as an example. So now you take this and now you create your texture directly onto this apple like that. So maybe for example, I'd make it thicker here in the center, and then flatter towards the edges of the apple. So you would do that, and you would create now that little texture over there, like that. And then you would leave that guy to dry, and then you would paint all the different shades of green over that. Right, so I'm going to take that off because I'm going to show you another way of doing it. So this here was the Impasto acrylic paint. So in the end of the day, you're just painting paint on top of paint. And that's something that you do often, eh? So there's nothing funny about that one. Okay, so now our next one is called a gel medium. So the gel medium is sort of, I don't want you to think of it as medium that you add to the paint to thin it down or anything like that. I'll see if I can show it. It's quite thick inside the tube or inside the tub itself. Now what this is, it does run a little bit. So if I do put it, let's see if we can. If I pop that on the palette and I tilt it like this, it will gradually run off. The whole idea with the gel medium is not particularly to create height, but we use it for other ways of creating texture. Now when this stuff dries, it'll dry transparent. Maybe I can, let's quickly pop, say, a little bit of this over here. I'll just put down a little bit. Okay, so can you see we've got some color down there. So let's zap him with a hairdryer. Okay, it's taken a while, and I don't want to. We don't want to sit here listening to the hairdryer the whole day. But you can see over here where it's thinner, it's already there where it's already dry. And even here to a degree, you can see what's happening is the gel medium dries transparent. So in the end of the day, you can create a texture of your canvas, dry it, and that texture will become invisible. So then you paint over your painting as though there was no texture, so you sort of half ignore that texture, and that's how the guys get. You'll often see paintings where there's seems to be texture underneath the paint, but that has got nothing to do with the brush strokes. This is how they do it. Now this texture gel, the one thing that it does do though is you can't build up height. You can't build up lots of height. You can get a little bit of height by popping this stuff on quite thick, and look there, can you see how this has continued to dry? It's almost, it's just this really thick part that's still transparent. You can't build up height because as this stuff dries, it slumps. So even though I'll run my finger over here and I can feel that there is texture, it hasn't got the height that, say, your Gesso or the Impasto paint would have. Can you see here? This guy's almost completely transparent. It's only the thickest little few dots there, and that little line there that you can still see. That whole this whole area here has disappeared. But if I rub my finger over it, I can feel it's got almost like a little bit of a, almost a bit of a plasticky feel to it. Right, so while that guy's drying, let me show you what else that this gel medium is great for. You take this gel medium, you get a brush, and you can plaster this gel medium on. So I'm just plastering it over the canvas. Let's see if we can zoom in on this area here. And you can do this over a painted surface. As you can see over there, there's this painted areas. You can paint straight over it with the gel medium. And when it dries, it is going to become transparent, like that. So I've can put it on reasonably thick. And now you can take things like crinkle paper. Here I've got an old serviette, so I'm just, or not an old one, but I've got a serviette. So I'm opening that up, just so that it's a thin layer. So this is sort of something similar to a crinkle paper. So I put this down on top of the canvas. Let's just get my camera to focus there. And look what I can do. I can move this serviette, because he's so thin, and I can move him around like that, and that's going to form all this lovely crinkly texture. So I'm just tilting it at an angle, just so that you can see that texture. Can you see that over there? Lovely, eh? So what you do now is you now leave that serviette to dry. So typically I would leave it for a good 24 hours to dry like that. And then once it's dry, then I'm going to come back in with a second coating of my, because this becomes now, it'll actually become hard, but I'll come back in with a second coating, and I'll gently coat it with some more of this gel. Because the gel slumps, and all you're basically doing is you're not adding extra height or anything like that. All you're doing is you're sealing the actual serviette itself. So that gives you like real good texture. Can you see that? It's incredible. So when you go and paint, and because this is so random, when you paint, that's when you get that it looks like you've really done all sorts of goodies. You've painted on a piece of leather or whatever. But you can also now plan ahead, depending on what you're painting. So let's say, for example, you're doing a landscape. So let me paint. Just add a little bit more texture over here. A little bit more of the gel over here, so that I've got a larger area to work with. Okay, so let's stick that down over there. So let's say, for example, here's a field in this area here. So now I can manipulate this and get all these crinkles and goodies running more horizontally. Maybe here's a tree in this area over here. So now I can build this so that it forms like, let's tear that over there. So it forms like the bark of a tree. Let's put lots down over there. Just to sort of coat this serviette. Alrighty, can you see what I've done? So I would now leave this guy to dry, because that's now sort of basically sticking the this serviette, or Maylan is pointing out in the US or in Canada you call it a napkin. It's the same thing. Alright, so you leave that guy. So he's now going to become basically a little hard from the amount of gel you've got inside there, but the bottom line is he's now going to get stuck to your canvas, right? So once he's all dry and a little bit hard, now you come back in with even more gel and you carefully coat the top guy to get him even harder. So now he's gonna, and you leave that to dry, so now he's a little bit harder. Then you come back in and give him a few more coats until you've completely sealed this this entire texture that you've built up there. And there's no way on earth you can build that kind of a texture up using anything else. So that's pretty fantastic, eh? And then once it's all dry, then you paint over it. That's great fun. Okay, so then Maylan is asking the next question with this, which I was about to answer, Maylan, so great minds think alike. So I'm going to take a little bit of this gel, and now you can use anything that's got texture to it. So for example, here's a the kitchen towel that I use for cleaning the brush on when I'm painting. But now can you see it's got a texture to it. So it's got a pattern on it. So I can now easily take this, let's pat some gel down there, and now I can go and stick this dude down there like that. Leave him to dry, and once he's dry, I come over him and add him a second layer to seal it at the top. And now guess what? Now I've got this texture, this pattern that's inside this paper is now on my canvas. So I've now essentially formed myself a canvas with a texture on it, a patterned texture, instead of just the standard little grain of the weave of the canvas. How cool is that? So that is the gel medium. So you get that in different brands. Okay, then the next thing that you can use to create texture is texture paste. So the texture paste comes in a tube like this. It's really nice and it's thick. It almost looks like cement, very fine cement. You see that? So this stuff is great if you're using little bits of it. If you're going to be using lots of it, like I do, I like to build up in texture a whole painting, and then I'll paint it. So I prefer to use this. So this here is your filler that you would use around the house to fill up holes in the wall. So it comes by lots of different names. I think the most famous brand name is Polyfiller, but it's not the grout. That grout filler, it's a powder. Then you mix it with water. You can do that, but I found to get the ratio of water and powder is correct for working with. You either add too much water and then it becomes too runny and then it slumps, or you add too little and it doesn't spread so nicely. So I buy these tubs, the pre-mixed tubs, so it's already mixed filler. So often you do need to still go and adjust it, but I think what they do is they don't just add water like the other one. I think they add some other chemical to it. So I'm just trying to get a piece out here. It literally feels like, if you hold it in your hand, it's actually a little bit gritty. If I just rub my fingers over it like this, it feels gritty, like it's got a very fine sand in it. And now, can you see? I can literally, it's beautifully pliable. So I can mold this to anything. So I can now pop this down on my canvas. Let's zoom in on that a bit. And I can turn this into now any shape I want to. So let's say, for example, I want this side here perfectly smooth. Then I can make that perfectly smooth. And maybe I want this side here dotty or rough. So let's make that maybe dotty and rough using just jabbing it with a knife. Maybe this side over here we want a pattern in it. So I'm just going to use the knife, but I'm going to form myself a pattern in there. And you could use anything. I mean, you could use just as an example. This is a business card holder, but you see it's got that little texture on it. So you could take something like this. You could put some texture paste down there and press that into it, and then you'd have that pattern. You can even, if you want to get stuff really smooth, you can even take it, just a little dip your knife in the water and just rub that over the surface, and then this stuff becomes, you can get it almost as smooth as glass. Super smooth. And like I say, you can now, let me just show you all those different textures. So there's the one that I've built in a texture. There's the one I've built in a pattern. And there's the two smooth sides. But I can turn this into anything. Let's make a donut shape. Yeah, maybe there's a crater of the moon, so maybe you're doing a moon painting, for example, or maybe you're making a boat. So let's maybe do a boat shape. And once you've got your texture gel or the texture paste, you leave this now to dry for a good 24 to 48 hours. You can use the hairdryer to speed dry the drying process up, but you've got to still make sure that it's dry on the inside as well before you paint it. So it's always best, so even though you've got it and it feels perfectly dry, at least leave it for however long they say here on your tub. So you've got to read there. So this one says allow to 2 to 3 hours for thin applications. For 6mm or layers or whatever, allow overnight. Where did I see the overnight? I did see overnight somewhere. But the bottom line is I'd leave it for at least 24 to 48 hours, you know, to get properly dry before I paint over it. And then once it is dry, you can also sand it. You can use chisels and scrapers and stuff to scrape texture and goodies into this. If you feel your shape isn't right, then you take some more of your texture paste and you continue building over the top of it. Obviously, once you've got this, you do have to now do before you've started painting. If you're working in acrylics, then yes, you can build this on top of acrylic paint, but you can't if you're using oils. You cannot put this stuff over oil paint or on top of oil paint, because this is water based, so it won't stick to the paint. But this will stick like anything. I've been using this for years, and I've never had it come off the canvas. And I use not just the flat panel canvas like this one. I've used the gallery or the box canvases as well. And once this stuff sticks to your canvas, I tell you what, it doesn't come off. You can even drop the canvas, because mine is battle tested already. My paintings with that texture stuff is texture gel on it, or texture paste on it. I've handled the knocks and bangs of immigrating from one country to another, and they've survived. Without as much as a chip, the stuff really does get beautifully hard. All right, so I think that's the majority of what I wanted to show you as far as all the different texture gels and things are concerned. I think you'll agree with me. There's lots of place for us to play. So you can take, say for example, that texture gel. You can plaster that on, where we've now put a serviette or a napkin and embedded that. You can embed anything. You can embed sand, so you can pop a nice thick layer of that down and sprinkle, say, sea sand or whatever. Leave that to dry, and then give it a second coat with your gel again to embed it and seal it, so that your paint and stuff isn't coming into contact with it. So then you're basically just embedding that in. And you could even, if you don't want to paint over it, let's say for example you've painted a seascape, so you can take your sand in front, and maybe you do live by the sea, so you can go and get yourself some sea sand. So then you paint your full-on seascape till it's done. Put your layer of texture gel on the foreground, where the beach is. Sprinkle your sand over, let it dry, seal it with a second layer of your gel, and voila! There you've got a seascape that's physically got sea sand on it. Because that texture gel dries transparent, you can't see it. It just sort of fuses you can sort of say those little grains of sand onto the canvas. It looks like they just belong there. And with a thicker with a texture paste, or the thicker one, you can build that up, and you can put sticks and grasses and all sorts of stuff in it. I used to use that and make, like, when I was still in South Africa, I used to make beautiful African patterns. So I would take African patterned serviettes, and I would put them basically onto the canvas, and then I'd add sticks and porcupine quills and all sorts of funny goodies, which I'd add then with the texture paste, and then you paint over that with earth tone kind of colors. I used to make lovely stuff. Great fun.